Hi, Zach Glenn, aka Glenn the Golden here, and it's been a painful 48 hours in the world of horror IP law. It started when several Redbubble users were notified that they had received a takedown notice for their listings that are related to the backrooms as a piece of internet phenomena. Then, someone who made an app for a backrooms inspired game claimed they received a takedown notice for their game. Lastly, the account on Twitter that runs the Backrooms Online, a website that aims to bring together all of the different interpretations of the backrooms under one banner to serve as an archive for all backrooms related content, had their Twitter account suspended. In the end, I can now say with certainty that the account of the user running the backrooms online has had their account restored. Kane Parsons issued a statement saying that people should be vigilant toward anyone trying to exercise control of the backrooms IP, but that the takedowns were likely a result of third-party IP monitoring software, and supposedly not even done directly by A24, but instead the various websites that were issuing the takedown notices themselves. None of this is a huge surprise to me because this is how several other similar IP issues have played out in the past. I felt like this was likely how the IP claims would play out, but it does show how lazy big corporations have become in enforcing IP compliance on their platforms. Just like how many creators have expressed frustration with how YouTube support now handles much of their problems almost entirely through automation, the same problems have shown up on the Google Play Store, Redbubble, and social media websites like Twitter, which I will continue to distinguish from the 4chan board X because of the type of genre fiction I enjoy covering on here. Redbubble has also given takedown notice to artists that are posting art that are unrelated to any IP, so it's no surprise to me that Redbubble has been especially unfriendly to artists in that regard. I'll be honest, I thought this situation was very likely to change over the next 48 hours, which is a large part of why I didn't rush to put anything out about the copyright strikes. That is the Glenn the Golden guarantee. If I know this story is going to change based on past stories, I'm not going to cover it right away. But these copyright systems have become a largely fraudulent way for corporations to wield a cudgel that makes it harder and harder for independent media like Parsons' Backrooms to come to have the meteoric success that he's had in the first place. That, combined with the fact that every new creator now has to compete with buckets of AI slop made by people who are unwilling to put in the effort to make actual content, means that while these strikes seem like they've been resolved this time, the overall problems that these systems contribute to is still completely unaddressed. One of the reasons that I thought this would still be interesting to talk about is because while people online were talking about how they had concerns about something similar happening to fan content related to the SCP Wiki after the VHS SCP movie comes out, the SCP universe is a completely different copyright system than an individual's copyright, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. Most intellectual property like the SCP Wiki, and to give another example in the same genre but a different medium of the audio drama, the Magnus Archives, are licensed under the Creative Commons by Share-alike license, which means that adaptations, remixes, etc. of the original work are allowed and must be shared under the same terms. Where this becomes a problem is with something like selling off movie rights. It means that you have to allow for the adaptation to be redistributed freely if it is a direct adaptation of the work, which makes it more difficult for writers to profit off their ideas, but not wholly impossible. The way that the Creative Commons by Share-alike license works is that the original text, images, logs, etc. associated with the article are copyrighted material under the license. However, the idea can be released by the artist under a separate license. Commercial use of the idea in this way would require the commercial venture to write a completely new story using the same ideas. And to this day, I have not seen a commercial production company willing to undertake that venture until the SCP VHS film. I find it very likely that the SCP VHS film is going to be produced under that small workaround within the SCP's Creative Commons license. To me, I think the big test of whether these licenses were ever worth it for artistic collectives will come after the SCP movie comes out. People have made loose adaptations of works under the SCP IP umbrella before, but as far as I'm aware, never with a professional production company. First test to me will be if anything similar to what has happened with the Backrooms IP happens to people operating under the SCP IP, and the other will be if the SCP Wiki community receives any type of positive windfall from the creation of the SCP VHS movie. I would say that another test for the license will be if IP trolls are able to use the courts to challenge fan works, but the Creative Commons license already failed that test in 2019 when a man named Andrea Duskin attempted to use a Russian court system to file copyrights on material related to the SCP Wiki. Despite the usage of the Creative Commons license in creating a public copyright on material related to the SCP Wiki, the court case was not dismissed, and had been fought all the way up to appeal prior to the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which happened due to American meddling in Crimea and Euromaidan, but I digress. Without any real avenue to turn a collective profit, the SCP Wiki had to raise money in a GoFundMe to protect their work that had very obviously been copyrighted substantially prior to when Duskin filed. Now, don't get me wrong. The Creative Commons license has a place in creating not-for-profit websites that serve a public good, like Wikipedia. But if I can get a bit conspiratorial for a minute, I think the popularity of the Creative Commons license and its usage by storytelling collectives actively undermines the ability of any kind of artistic collectives to form, and thus pushes the internet closer and closer to the Net 2.0 and 3.0 model, where a bulk of the traffic is happening in social media walled gardens, where the content can be controlled by powerful corporations. If you look at the major websites using Creative Commons licenses, with the exception of the Internet Archive, a project that I'm in great support of, you'll see that many of them, YouTube, Wikipedia, MIT, are all organizations with institutional power who have benefited from the shift over to the walled garden approach to internet access. The term walled garden was originally applied to communist countries who attempted to keep their media ecosystem separate from the American media ecosystem, primarily online. But just like how America uses corporations' abilities to hire and fire you to curtail free speech, in the same way that any country they accuse of authoritarianism regulates speech, they have taken a similar approach to creating a walled garden. You may be asking yourself, how does this relate back to the Backrooms? Under what license do you think the Backrooms Wiki had its material copyrighted? I think I would be remiss if I didn't offer a potential solution to this problem at some point in the video. I think what a lot of groups that have eyed up the Creative Commons share-alike license in the past for their collaborative IP project are actually looking for is communal ownership. There haven't been any resources readily made available for any organization looking to embark on a communally owned IP. Gee, I wonder why, but I think it could offer a potential solution for the problems that Creative Commons has posed for groups like the SCP Wiki. The most common reason that I see trotted out that there's no impetus to engage in communal ownership is that it would be a potential legal headache for any type of successful project. But I think the SCP Wiki's lawsuit with Duskin has already proven that any kind of project that is copyrighted under the Creative Commons is going to become a headache if the project is easily commercialized. Communal ownership would likely be done under a trust, and many of the same responsibilities that already fall to the administrators of these various Creative Commons projects now could be administered to as part of the duties of the trust. One of the reasons that I believe that there have never been tools made available to do these projects under a communal trust is that it would give the trust the ability to create their own creators fund and distribute money to artists working for the project, thus rivaling the walled garden setup, potentially creating rivals to the walled garden that organizations like Wikipedia and YouTube have successfully managed to set up for themselves. Imagine if the people who had actually made the concepts from games like Containment Breach popular were actually making a little bit of money from every download of the game. Sadly, it seems like it's basically impossible to extricate these current communities from the Creative Commons license and move them to something that could be more profitable for all of the artists responsible for a project's popularity. However, that does not mean this idea is dead in the water. It could be quite possible for someone like Kane Parsons, who has a lot of newfound money and prestige, to create a communal trust for a project that he puts in front of his community in the future. He already has a large Discord full of talented amateurs with skills in rendering, digital images, writing, and more. If he really wants to do right by the idea of a communal artistic endeavor in the future, I hope he takes a look at the idea of communal licensing for a future project. Anyway, I just wanted to get a quick video out there explaining that the way that these projects are done now is not the only way to do things. If just one person who embarks on a communal mixed media project in the future sees this and is cautious about licensing the work under Creative Commons license, then it did its job. That's all for me for this one, folks. Stay golden out there.